Hi, my name is Reverend Dale Brown, and it is my great privilege to welcome you once again to the podcast series for Community Church at Ocean Pines. I have the great privilege of being the pastor here, and it's a wonderful congregation for many reasons, but let me just say two of them. One is because I sincerely and deeply believe that God is present with us, and number two, because the congregation is filled with wonderful, wonderful, faithful people who hear and listen for God's call. And when they hear God's call to a new area of ministry or to greater acts of service, they respond with a great affirmative, with a wonderful yes. So I'm joined with one of those persons today, and her name is Deborah Haberstroh. Now, I've always called her Debbie, and I think I can get away with that today if she doesn't hit me.
That's okay.
And number two, she is filling a call in ministry to something called a licensed, certified lay minister. And our polity as United Methodist, that's a person who has received extra training, who has become a lay servant, and then a certified lay servant, and then has gone on to 4 modules past that, and is trained to do all kinds of sorts of things in the life and ministry of the church. Debbie is specializing in lay visitation, and that grows out of her experience as a Stevens minister. So Debbie, welcome. It's good to see you this morning.
Thank you.
And help us to know where you are in this process. You're just starting out, so help me understand what's going on.
I'm just starting out, and I just wanted to start a little bit about how this whole calling came about. I had been, over the last year, doing, in the morning with my morning devotionals, I would do affirmations before I even would get up.
Mm-hmm.
I would affirm that I'm surrendering my heart to God.
Mm-hmm.
I am absolutely certain of how much He loves me, and my goal is to offer that love to others. Every morning, that was my practice. And then I would go into, I started doing journaling.
Mm-hmm.
I also was doing Bible reading
Mm-hmm.
and different devotionals.
Mm-hmm.
And those practices took a good part of the morning for quite some time. I was just finding my peace and filling my consciousness with good things, because I learned that I had to get rid of all of the negative thoughts and things that were leading me not to live to potential, to God's potential.
Remove the distractions.
I removed the distractions, and I started to meditate. And on that path, I became aware that God sort of was directing me to the next thing, to the next thing.
Okay.
So I had been, I had many different roles
Mm-hmm.
at Community Church. I was a Stephen minister, Stephen leader, and did supervision for many years.
Mm-hmm.
I've been the emergency outreach person
Mm-hmm.
working
Absolutely.
in this office. I've done the power prayers and the prayer ministry,
Mm-hmm.
and even worked in the pantry and the nook over here
Across the way.
Across the way.
Okay.
And all of that was very fulfilling at the time. But in November, I just was feeling unsettled. And I was feeling like there's more for me. There's more that
Right.
God wanted me to do. So I just had that unsettled feeling, like this is not I just don't feel like I am living my full purpose yet. So, and I'd gone back to Stephen ministry. I'd gone to power prayers and prayer ministry, and I was doing all those things, but they were not. It just did not seem like that was all I was to be doing. So November came and went, and Christmas with all the busyness and everything, and Christmas is a time where there's so much to do. Your mind is not all there. You're just 50 places at once, especially if you're traveling out of state, which I did, and took my Christmas with me to Pennsylvania. When I came back, the week between Christmas and New Year's, I was very tired, so I had been just resting. And one morning, I'm just sitting in the chair where I do Bible reading and meditate and things. And I just had this random thought go through my mind. I want you to be a lay minister. And I just brushed it away. I said, no. I said, I don't feel that I'm worthy of doing that. And the thought of it is a little frightening. And no, I'm not, that's just, that was just a random thing. And I moved on with my day. The next morning when I got up, that was literally all that I could think of. I was just inundated all day with, this is what I want you to do. This is what I want you to do. So finally, I called someone I knew who had done the lay ministry training, and I spoke with her a little bit and asked her what the process was and how long it took and everything. And God was leading me to call you. And I called you, and you were away.
Yes. It's one of those few times in life when that actually happens.
You got away. And
but we did get back to you eventually.
We did.
Yes, we did.
Yeah, and I fell asleep. And you called me 9:45 at night.
Yes, that was going through the list of calls. So, but we got a chance to talk now.
Yes.
So you felt a nudging.
I felt
to something
a nudging,
more,
and God
and you said
was
yes.
God was asking me to do this, and finally, after the whole day of being this on my mind, I finally said, "Lord, I receive it," and that's when I called you.
Okay, so your area of interest, your area of service for us now, and as you go through the training before you even become certified, is in visitation.
That's,
What is it about visitation that excites you?
Well, I've always been a person who loved interaction with people. And early on, when I was younger, I worked in several different nursing facilities with people with all different kinds of physical challenges and conditions. And I've always been a compassionate person. So I feel that this is just the next step in that. Because I know when I look back and I wondered how God got me to this place, and I look back and I see the things that I did, it's just this linear path. And I'm blessed to be where I am now, and I feel that when I go and visit someone, be it in their home, in a nursing home, even in the hospice, God's working through me.
So you become, for that person, an extension of myself and the ministry of this church, but also, in some ways, the presence of God in that room.
Absolutely.
Have you run into a type of visit that's a challenge or difficult for you?
Oh, yes, very much. One particular, the first visit I made to Manor House in Seaford. And this lady I had known when she was a parishioner here. And she had struggles. She was never a positive person. And her husband was going through Parkinson's, and she was really to the point where she was suicidal. When I went to her house that day to help prepare meals for her husband, and I talked her out of those. So I said, you cannot go on this way. And I got her in touch with people that could help her.
Okay.
And Home Instead was one of the groups that got her onto a path, because she was so overwhelmed by her husband.
Sure, Parkinson's is a horrible disease.
And she had a shoulder surgery. She had been an avid golfer and an outdoors person, walked 4 miles a day every day. And she just was at her wit's end. So moving then to current time, I had heard she was moved to Manor House. She and her husband had a small
Right.
apartment there.
Right.
Well, then her husband passed away,
Okay.
and she just digressed. And she got to the point where she wanted no contact with anyone. She hated everything about her life, and got to the point where I went to see her, and I said, "This is Debbie." I said, "Do you remember me?" And at first she didn't. And as time passed a little bit, and I was talking about her husband and where she lived, recognition struck. And I'm here to be someone that you can talk to if you choose to. I said, and if you don't want to talk, because she was complaining about everything and just didn't want to be bothered, I said, I will sit here on this chair. And I said, I'll just be here.
Mm-hmm.
So she laid down, and 2 minutes later she sat up and she looked at me. There was a wheelchair sitting by her bed, and she got up and she sat on the wheelchair. And I was sitting across the room on a chair. And she scooted herself over to me, and she looked me in the face, and she started talking. She told me her whole life story of how when she was born in Manhattan, and her mother had mental illness, and they took her away, and she never had any love in her childhood. And it brought me an understanding I never had before of why she is so negative about love.
And that happened by listening to her and being available to her.
Very much.
Which is a
Very
gift that a
much.
CLM can give, which sometimes a pastor can't give because there's other things that are happening.
Yes.
And you can take the time with an
Yes.
individual.
Yes.
And the Manor House is a wonderful place.
Yes, and I also saw another lady there who is pretty incapacitated totally, but the second time, and I went back a second time, and we had the opportunity to talk again a second time, and she actually opened her eyes to my voice, and I said hello, and I mentioned her name. And this big smile came on her face. I said, "How are you?" She said, "I'm doing fine." And so it was so rewarding, because the first time I couldn't even get her to open her eyes, but that time she did.
Good for you. Good for you. So when we think, Debbie, about about this calling, the process, as I understand it, is you have to first become a lay speaker. So you'll take the basic class starting in about 2 weeks or so. And I'll be teaching another class, so I'll hear reports that if you're misbehaving or something. Be in the same building, different room.
Right.
And then you will wait a year and you'll take a second class, and you'll go from basic to certified. And then after you take a certified class, you're eligible to take 4 units of training beyond that, and then you can become a certified lay minister. You actually have a graduation. I've been to the graduation exercises for others and things, and it's pretty neat. Now, we have a certified lay minister in our class, in our church, and things, and she's a wonderful lady. You and I both know her and love her, and that's Arlene Page. And I say it because she's sitting over there across the room, and her
absolutely.
husband is filming us and things. And Arlene has been a tremendous asset to this church, and we thank her for all
Yes.
that she has done. So you've got a little bit of a journey ahead, but you're doing some visitation in between those times, and I think you're doing a grand job. I'm thrilled because you, as a lay visitor, want to be a CLM, and I have Austin, who's doing tech stuff, and a lot of other things here at the church, who also wants to study to be a CLM. It's a really wonderful way for a lay person who's not going to go to seminary and college and other things to continue their growth and faith and training in Christ. So I applaud you for that. Good
Thank
job done well.
Thank you.
And things. And you were all nervous about the podcast.
I was.
I know you were. And things.
I relaxed.
But I told you
I'm
would be
sitting beside
okay.
of you. I'll relax.
Yeah, thank you. I told you you'd be okay.
Yeah.
But Debbie is an asset to the church. If you would like a visit, I also continue to visit, and others do. Stephen Ministers, which is an important program
Yes.
in the life
Yes.
of our church. But call the church and ask for Debbie, and we'll help her to get back to you, and we can schedule a visit
Yes,
that
definitely.
you can make. Now, Debbie, you have 1 minute to say one more thing before we go.
Okay.
So what is it you would like everybody to know as the parting shot before I get in trouble with Ted?
Okay, absolutely. And it's very important. I wanted to pass along to everyone to listen to God's voice in your life.
Okay.
And to say yes to God. To let Him know that you are going to walk with Him on the path He's chosen for you. Because we all have those talents. And whatever way He's leading you, follow.
And you'll not regret it, right?
You will not regret it.
All
In fact,
right.
I feel so very blessed and so humbled by this.
Yeah.
I just am enjoying my life so fully.
Well, that's good to hear, and thank you for being here this morning.